I'm Nick Georgioulis, a lieutenant with Manchester Police.
Matt LaRochelle, I'm a captain with Manchester Police Community Affairs Division.
Melanie Sanu, Southern New Hampshire Services.
Nicola Dubrick, State Children's Alliance.
Joy Barrett, Granite State Children's Alliance.
Molly Rozo, Southern New Hampshire Services.
Mary Roberge, neighbor.
Eric Bukowski, Manchester Parks and Rec.
Joyce Cardinal.
And I'm Mary Heath, your Ward 7 woman. So, questions? It'll be a really short meeting if we don't have any questions.
Well, okay. You know I'm going to say
I
something.
know, Mary.
I'm sorry, everybody, but I was a cat in a former life, so I asked many questions. So I guess I'm a little disappointed. First of all, I'm disappointed that the turnout from this neighborhood is big. I really thought there would be other people coming. My daughter had another commitment. She may be over later if she can, but I really and truly have concerns about this because I've got a feeling that this project is going to end up being for homeless housing. Not senior housing as it was built, but I think it's going to be for homeless housing.
It's not.
I don't have a guarantee of that. And
You
maybe I'm
do.
wrong to ask for a
You do.
guarantee,
You
but,
You do have guarantees.
Yes.
I do senior housing.
okay, so when you said you were counting beds in the city at the last
Yep.
aldermanic meeting, my impression was that you were talking about beds that were available for homeless people.
No, senior, I was talking about affordable housing in the city of Manchester.
Okay.
And there are 20, right now in the plans, 20 units of affordable housing in this building for senior citizens in this proposal. That's what I was talking about.
Okay.
And Mary, we couldn't have a child advocacy center co-located with a homeless shelter. That would not be something that we could ever entertain. Am I right?
All
So there's a
right.
guarantee.
So, well, first of all, I'm really sad that Hallsville School has actually come to the point that it was neglected for so long, which really kind of saddens me. It's a beautiful building, and I would love to see it do and have some value. As far as me being the neighbor, first of all, I am going to be your nosy neighbor, because anything that goes on in my neighborhood, I look. All right, because we are in the inner city. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. We're in the inner city. And I don't want to see this neighborhood neglected, and I don't want to see it run down or deteriorated any further. Okay, we already have one person who's selling his house. Okay? So, child advocacy, you're only going to be here 5 days a week, not on the weekends. You're thinking of putting that building where the former classroom portable used to be. Okay, that is a concern I have, because there are kids that will come and they play on the schoolyard building. They do climb the fence. They have climbed the gymnasium here on top of this roof. They've climbed the trees. They've ended up jumping in my backyard. I don't want to have to deal with that. I really don't. I was frankly kind of glad when portable was gone, because that opened up that area. Okay, so the kids still come and play in the schoolyard, but they're not using the building that was there as their little secret hiding place. Okay, so that's the concern I have about having that child advocacy building put back where the portable was. It was at one time, it was at the corner over here, which to me would be great, because now, if kids do come and play around that building, they can see them, you know, because they're in a corner, but they can be seen on all sides.
So the plan is that that building to house the offices for the Granite State Children's Alliance, which is the umbrella agency that oversees the CAC, it's going to go, the initial plan of the architect is exactly where the portable was, but it's going to go wherever we can maximize the use of the property. so that the elderly can safely get into their home, that people can park appropriately, that people can enter the advocacy center safely at the front door. So I think the idea of moving it is certainly something that can be talked about as the site is developed, but odds are good that it's going to be right where it is.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, there are going to be people in this building 24/7 who live here, which is different than when it was a school building. So your concern about youth coming in and doing certain things may be alleviated a little bit because there will be occupancy here, individuals living here.
And our experience with the elderly is they do not have a problem making sure that we know if there's a problem. So within 2 blocks of here, we own 2 other sites called
Yes,
Hallsville.
Hallsville Court is great, the way it was developed, but you also had the neighbors that had a vested interest. Right now, the only neighbor that seems to have a vested interest, and that is here, is me, okay?
Yeah, but wait a minute, you're selling us short, and that's not fair. You know,
Well, okay, you have a valid point.
But we have 30 elderly housing properties throughout the state. We have a fair amount here in Manchester and other communities. We have 10 outreach resource centers for families, and we are in people's neighborhoods all over. And it's important to us to be the best neighbors that we can be. And I know the Child Advocacy Center has multiple locations, and it's the same. We want you to be a good neighbor to us, and we want to be a good neighbor to you. And so I don't want you to assume that, you know, the city's going to let us do this and we're going to not care about the people around us. I mean, it's good for the people that live here to have a relationship with their neighbors too.
I
Yeah.
actually will work out of here. This will be where my office is located, as well as Nicole. And so, you know, I physically will be a neighbor of yours because this will be my, this will be my workspace.
Yeah, you just have to understand where I'm coming from and what I've gone through. In seeing people with parking and seeing what has happened to the school in the past year. And quite frankly, when there has been an issue and I've had to call the Manchester Police Department, they've not responded, okay? So it's very difficult for me. I really and truly want to meet everybody halfway, and I want to see what your vision is and work with you. But it's difficult for me because past experience, unfortunately, has not been good. And I don't know how it's going to work out once you have the senior housing here, if there's going to be lighting, you know, around the property or not. I'm hoping that the people who like to shoot off fireworks will no longer be able to come on the property.
So, I mean, we're not going to make you 100% happy. I can just tell you from experience that
Yeah.
we are not going to be able to accommodate everything that you would like to see, but we will listen to your concerns and we will adjust accordingly. We have a resource center that's located in a neighborhood in Nashville that's below the houses, or the houses where people live are above. And our lighting concerned them. And so we took into consideration all of those things, and we put lighting on that was on timers and motion sensitive. So they didn't want it to be dark down there in case something was going on, but they didn't want it to be light all the time because, right, it's going to interrupt them sleeping. And so, you know, we could accommodate that, so we did. So those things that we can do, we will do. But when you have lived next to a school, I can only imagine, you know, what goes on. I mean, you know, I live next to a high school. So at least the kids here weren't driving. But
No, their parents were.
well, but anyway, I mean, clearly,
I mean, that's part of the point. You know, this is a school with hundreds of students, each of it who individually had parents to come to pick them up. We're not going to create that volume of traffic. We have, you know, 3 to 5 appointments a day of people coming into the CAC, and then the people that live here. Yes, there's going to be a Head Start classroom 12 to 15 students, not hundreds of students.
Okay, all right. You just said Head Start. That means parents are going to be driving their kids.
Yeah, one
They have
classroom
12
of 15
parents.
kids.
Okay, but they're going to be driving their kids. Where are they going to drop their kids off? Where are they going to park? Because that was one of the issues I had with the school, okay?
It's on the other street. The Head Start classroom is going to be where that kitchen is. So what's the other
Are you
side of the
going to
street?
build
Somebody tell
another
me.
entrance there?
Yeah, well, there is an entrance there. We're just going to make it so it's safely ground up.
Now, speaking as the alderman for Ward 7, serving on the committee, this is ultimately the best of all worlds. We get something for children. We get something, we still get the attributes that the pickleball players will be able to come here. We have senior citizens who will have housing here. The building will be in use 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It will be safe, it will be lighted. And it's giving back to our community. The things that are going to be done here for children are critical. And I can't, you know, there are lots of things that could have happened here. We could have torn it down and built something else here. But I think we're honoring the value of this building and the spirit that Hallsville School has within it. So, I don't know, we've talked about this lots of times. You know, I had some misgivings myself, but as I sit here and I've talked with Alderman Long and the mayor and Eric, and I've spent a lot of time here at this school lately with the block party that we had here. And, you know, I really feel like this is going to honor who we want Hallsville to be. And the senior citizens, it will be wonderful. And to have small children here, it's what everybody had asked for.
What about the neighborhood?
But Mary, you know what will say to you?
No, seriously.
On short
I
notice,
understand.
Mary, let me finish, please.
Okay.
On short notice, all of these people are here. Once, I promised that when we found out what was going to happen, that we would have a meeting. And it was in the Union Leader, and I know I didn't do flyers and I didn't put up a sign, but it was in the Union Leader.
Online.
And I put it online, I broadcast it to our Ward 7 Safety Committee, so the news did get out there. But all these people are here, they responded, they made changes in what they were doing to be here tonight. So I think we know that we're gonna get 100% cooperation from these folks.
Can I maybe make a comment that might make you feel better? This project is going to have to go through
Just
some
speak a little
reviews.
louder. I'm sorry, I have a hard hearing.
Oh, the project, as it's developed, is going to have to go in front of boards, the zoning board, the planning board. Their plans are going to get developed. They're going to show where they're going to propose parking, where they're going to close up curb cuts, perhaps, where they're going to put landscaping. The planning board's going to ask about lighting. They're going to want to make sure that lighting isn't being directed into neighbors' houses. They're going to want to know about the circulation of the kids, parents dropping off and picking up Head Start children. They're going to ask all these questions, and there'll be public hearings. And you and all the neighbors will have the ability to ask a lot of the questions you're asking now, that I'm sure they'll be able to have better answers because their plans will be further developed. Right now, they're in the process of, you know, once they've been committed to being able to move forward, they're looking to get funding so they can make it a reality. But we will be working with them. When I say we, I mean the planning department will be working with them to try to get the best plan possible. And you will absolutely have the opportunity to weigh in on what it looks like, how they propose where the curb cuts are, if they're putting fencing up, taking down fencing, all those kinds of things. So I guess I just wanted to say this is so early on because the Board of Mayor and Aldermen just made that decision, but we'll be working with them because they're not going to be able to actually, you know, move this to reality without going through the boards that they need to go through. So we'll be there.
So there's a number of things, like you said fencing. Is that fence that's over on this side, are there plans to take that down?
It's too early.
I don't know.
Because I would prefer that it stays because it does delineate the properties. Unfortunately, and this is something you or I don't have control over, the some people, I've got signs that say, do not block the driveway, and people always think a sign is for somebody else, not for them. It's just the nature of people.
Well, Mayor, the city will come and will put signs up too.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's something you'd like me to work on, that's a simple thing. I can get in touch with Christian and we can work on getting signs out there for you.
I actually, well, I've got signs there now.
All
So
right.
I think, here's the thing. I just want to be able to feel safe. I want to be able to get in and out of my driveway. I'm semi-retired now. At some point in my life, I want to be fully retired. I do a lot of volunteer work. I go out and I do errands. I want to be able to come and go out of my driveway. Okay, it's tight enough now to get in, so this is a concern. Okay, I want to be able to get off my street. When I was working full-time, granted when the school was there, but it took me a half hour to get off my street because of the way the traffic was at that time. So this is probably one of my biggest concerns, as well as wanting to feel safe, okay? And I'm sure you can understand that. So
The 20 elderly people that are going to live here are going to want to be able to get out of the driveway here as well.
And this is a.
Oh, I would hope so.
It's a
Well, I'm
vacant,
just saying.
yeah, but it's a vacant building right now.
yeah.
And we're putting it to very good use. Like Pamela said, we have to go through the boards for review, but I feel like we've also committed to keeping the neighbors involved in addition to that. So we literally just approved, they need to get funding. The questions about fencing or entrance, egress, all of that is still up in the air, but know that the value here is we're preserving this historic building. We took the neighbors' concerns and suggestions into account when saying yes to these folks. We all know that you've had concerns with your driveway, getting in and out, and on the street. And I think to Nicole's point, there are going to be less people here, less cars here. So that should be good, you know, and there's got to be some trust. And I know you've had concerns,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you being here and articulating them. But we all have to trust that we are moving in the right direction on behalf of not only the individuals that will be served in this building, but the neighborhood. And I think that the use of this building as proposed is extremely, it's really good. One of the things, Donnelly, and I believe you said it, it was regarding the CAC and the Head Start program. They are going to be working with youth that some have dealt with significant trauma early on and helping them through that, right? So that when they become adults, they are productive members of our community. So getting these youth early on and helping them through is really, really valuable. Like, we needed that decades ago. I'm so grateful for the work that's being done and that we can have a place in the city to help families and youth through that and then stay in our city is exactly what we need.
I'm not going to argue against that, okay? It is good. I'm being selfish, if you really, let's be honest, I'm being selfish. I'm here because I not only am interested in what happens to the school, but I do have my own selfish reasons being the next door neighbor. And I want to be able to express those concerns, and I would want to be able to feel, like I said, that I feel safe, that I can get in and out, that I don't feel like I'm a prisoner in my house, okay? And if there is a concern, I want to know, who would I go and talk to, or who would I see?
Depends on what the concern is, right?
You know, yeah, and see, and that's
But I
the
mean,
thing,
I
I don't
think-
want to have to go back and
Well,
forth.
are you talking during the planning portion or when this is built out in terms of a concern?
No, I'm talking about more when it's built out.
Okay, so
Because the thing
So
is,
it's a problem with the senior housing.
yeah,
So maybe there's an obnoxious person that lives here, and it's totally possible, right? And you have a problem with them, then I would want to know. And if you have a problem with something that somebody that's coming to the CAC, then Joy would be the one that you would talk to, right? If you have a problem with what's going on in the gymnasium, that's your guy.
Is there a
If you have a problem with Head Start, I'm your girl.
But
You
we
know
can
what I mean?
certainly,
And
we can
you don't
document
care.
that so the neighbors understand who to call when.
Yeah,
And there'll be staff.
More than likely, Mayor Craig, it's gonna be me.
But that's fine, but you will know, right? I mean, you will
Well,
know.
that's what you need,
Yeah.
is you need to know who to reach.
Exactly, yes,
Make
exactly. So
memories.
that's the thing. I mean, I'm not against anything happening to this building. I would rather see something there. I know when they come and play pickleball, really and truly, it was not an issue. I know there is some sort of youth program. There's not too much of an issue, just once in a while they need to pick up their trash because it ends up in my yard, okay? But
I will tell you, Mayor, that our other CAC was in a neighborhood right by the Elliott. We never once had a complaint from a neighbor about our services, about parking, about the people that come in and out. Never once. Never, ever. And we were in a neighborhood right by the Elliott with houses on two sides of us.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can appreciate that it is very tight, it's a tiny street, because that's the other thing, if you ever had a fire truck that wanted to come down this street, it would be difficult, okay, if you have cars parked on both sides.
We're not anticipating, I don't think, any parking on the street. I mean, we've been able to, look obviously at the current parking situation and what we can, what the needs are for the Child Advocacy Center, what the needs are for seniors. And I'm not anticipating any parking on the street really necessary. I think obviously the school probably had their limitations with parking. Obviously, there's probably a pick up and drop off. I'm just imagining an elementary school in the city and people dropping their children off, and probably created some of those circumstances that you're talking about. That will no longer occur. That people will be pulling into the parking lot, parking and coming in the building. They're not waiting in their cars. They're not, pulling into the street. So I think some of the issues you might have had in the past won't be occurring now because of the way that we're utilizing the building.
I also think that the value of your property will go up once these organizations come in and improve the property. Donnelly's agency and Melanie's familiar have gone before the board for other projects, and they've been required to put landscape buffers in. They've been required to upgrade stuff on the property. And so, from the perspective that you've got right now, a building that's occasionally has gotten broken into recently and has boarded up windows, that doesn't help you. And hopefully, a reuse of this building with the projects that are proposed in the building and the improvements to the site, I think will be beneficial to your house and the value of your house and to some of the other neighbors around here. I would like to just, for example, point out Ash Street School, yes, on Bridge Street, that was closed, and it was sold to the company that's in there now. There was no landscaping around the perimeter when the school district had their offices there. They came in and maintained that building, did interior what they needed to put their offices in. They did a fantastic job with landscaping, and that can make such a big difference in a neighborhood when you see that kind of improvements. So I think that there's a really good chance that all of this that comes to fruition, you're going to see an improvement to the property that you and your neighbors will be happy to see.
Well, Ash Street School too was also done by a private company.
Okay.
Which, Southern New Hampshire Services is
We're a private nonprofit.
We are also a private nonprofit.
Not wealthy.
I would just add one thing from the police department standpoint. We're a very strong partner. We're part of the multidisciplinary team. I think we talked about this at the last meeting, and our involvement in the work that they do, and the fact that we can't do what we do to investigate crimes against children without them. You talk about security. We're virtually going to have a representative, a detective from the police department here whenever this place is open, and probably beyond that, because we're talking about potentially putting an office, like an off-site that can be utilized even when they're not open. You might have somebody in a uniform that can come in and type a report, but you're always going to have somebody dressed like Lieutenant Georgioulis that's here whenever there's an investigation going on in an interview that they're conducting. So we're talking, I don't want to get into numbers too much, but pretty much 3 times a day,
Yeah.
we have a detective leaving the station, going to the CAC, and when they're leaving after a couple of hours, there's another detective showing up. So when you talk about issues of parking and whether you can grab somebody to bend their ear a little bit from the police department, there's probably always going to be somebody at least dressed like that walking in and out of here, and sometimes dressed like this too. Not as often, but we're going to be around. We're going to be forming relationships with other community members. The community policing unit is probably going to be up here a lot, but these guys are going to be here all the time. So talk about safety and police presence and having somebody to talk to if there's an issue, there's always going to be somebody here. So.
I have to say, frankly, I'm impressed. Right? No, it's true. You guys outnumbered me tonight. No, but you've had, I think, wonderful opportunities to be able to talk to each of us individually, to talk in the public hearing, both at the Board of Aldermen. You caught me in the rain outside of, the mayor's state of the, or was it the governor's state of the state, or the mayor's state of the city, or whatever it was. Right? Yeah, I stood out there in the rain with you for almost 20 minutes, and it didn't do much for my hairdo, but but my point is, I think we're all demonstrating that your concerns have a place to be heard. We've heard them. And if they change, or there's a new one, we're happy to listen. Look at who's here. I don't know, I was a mayor for 8 years, I didn't know I was here.
I'm impressed myself, really, that you all come to
But I think you have a credible group of people that are willing to hear you out.
Because we care as much as you do. We care. We do.
This is also a substantial investment for these 2 organizations. We wouldn't be making the investment that we're making if we didn't care and we didn't want to make this into something nice, not only for us, but for the neighborhood and the city, right? It's a lot of work and time and effort and eventually money that we're going to be putting into this. So it's a substantial investment for us.
And the benefit to children and to senior citizens, I think of the work that you do as a former teacher and seeing children who never had the benefit of what you do and what happened in their lifetime is heartbreaking. Actually, you're right. We had one of the homeless young people that were at our board meeting. And, I just think if he had the kind of intervention that you are making available, and that actually young man had a lot of problems along the way. And it will prevent further vandalism around here. It'll make a difference, but most of all, there won't be any more throwaway children. There will all be ice, I suppose, but it will save so many children's lives that wouldn't have been saved otherwise. It's unbelievable what you're doing. Thank you.
Investment in their future.
Yeah,
exactly.
It'll be something to be very proud of, actually. This is a model that there is not something like what we're developing here alongside with Southern anywhere in the state, and will be a model to follow. It will be a legacy project that people will be very, very proud of.
And there'll be pickleball.
Don't forget the opportunities for
We'll be here to fill in the gaps that these folks don't.
Well, if people are coming here for things like pickleball and youth programs, they too will care about the building.
Yes.
And they will want to make sure that there's a style and everything. It's important to people to have a place to use for things like that.
Well, if there are no more questions, Mary, we can let everybody go home.
Yes, and thank you all for hearing what I had to say. And Mary, I do want to thank you for listening. I also want to thank you for what you have done. You are the first alderman, really, who has actually listened to a appreciate that. And I know I'm not the only constituent, but I do appreciate that. And also, Mayor Craig, I appreciate you coming out tonight, and everyone else. And I would acknowledge all of your names. I know Mr. Long, and I know Donnelly. I guess the rest of you I'll know along the way.
And I want to thank you too. I mean, this is incredible that you all come out for this evening. It means a lot, and really is a demonstration that we know we can count on you. So thank you. And so with that, I will, unless there are other issues, questions, anybody else?
I'm going to read my first one.
Okay. We all can go home, I guess. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
I feel like they're going to have to go home there.
Pickleballs.